What is going on, Hawks Nation? Welcome back to another edition of the HFTV podcast brought to you by Alex and Mac. Hopefully, everyone's having a great week so far. I know it's been quite a drama-filled week if you're a Hawks fan. A lot of news broke out in roughly the last 72-ish hours. But Mac, if you guys have been following us on Twitter, then some of you Hawks fans might have heard this story pop up the day of, which was last Friday. And that's what Hawks Fan TV is created for, right? We want to be a voice for the fans, by the fans, want to give people as much behind the scenes sneak peek as much as possible. Obviously, with the Hawks not currently having an athletic writer on staff, a lot of the news and the stories have kind of been a lot less drama filled from last year when Chris Kirschner was covering the team. But if you guys aren't familiar with what we're talking about, obviously we're talking about all the Trae and Nate McMillan and the locker room drama, which we'll get into in the show in just a second. But Mac, how you feeling today? Obviously, it's been a stressful week for us Hawks fans, huh?
Yeah, man. It's last night was kind of the cherry on top losing that game. So, we could have recorded this yesterday and I might feel a little bit better than I do now, but it is what it is, man. But my honest opinion on the whole situation is I'm trying not to think too much into it. Nate and Trae both have come out and said like, "Hey, let's nip this in the bud. Like this is not something that we want to be carried out for the rest of the season." Trae was obviously pretty adamant about that. It was a private matter in the first place, that it should have never become public. But I understand that in today's world, it's hard to keep things private, especially when you're in the public eye the way that Nate McMillan and Trae Young are. So I'm personally trying not to think too much into it. I think some people don't realize exactly what happened. So Trae ended up missing the shoot around on Friday because he wanted to go get some treatment on his shoulder. And Nate McMillan basically said, you can do that, but if you do that, you're going to come off the bench, or you can just not even play. So Trae heard that, and I'm not going to say what Trae thought. I don't know what he thought, but obviously he ended up not playing. That was the decision he went with. And I think it's one of those instances where, like, if you want to relate it to a more professional corporate setting, it's like your strongest employee, your best employee is asking for, sure, slightly preferential treatment. And instead of giving it to them like they probably deserve, you want to take this approach of, everybody gets treated equally here and all that stuff. So I think it was just a miscommunication, like they both have kind of highlighted. I think, and we'll kind of go on this a little bit later, but even some local reporters are really trying to turn this into a story, man. They're really trying to turn this into some sort of drama, soap opera crap. But I'm going to take them for their word. They both have good track records when it comes to things like this. I know some people want to bring up, Lloyd Pierce with Trae, but I think that's a completely different scenario. So I'm going to trust them on this one. I don't think the loss last night, I do think it could be contributed to just all the hoopla going around the Hawks right now, but I do think a lot of people probably just forget in the moment that DeAndre Hunter and John Collins didn't play that game. So we have both those guys out there. I do feel confident we probably pull off a win. So yeah, man, those are my thoughts on it. I'm trying not to think too much into it, but it is hard when it's kind of thrown in our faces as Hawks fans as much as it has been here recently. So, and you're on mute, Alex.
There you go. Appreciate that. And yeah, great points all around, Mac. And I'm sure Hawks fans, if you guys have seen the rounds by now, Shams of The Athletic came out with that official report, I guess, 2 days ago, which was on Sunday evening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a lot of Hawks fans finally believed that there was actually something happening behind the scenes. As I mentioned in the start of the show, HawksFanTV, us, we broke that story the day of on Friday. I tweeted it out from the Twitter account. So if you guys aren't following yet, which I'm sure most of you are, if you're listening to this, but if you're not, make sure you follow us on all our social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, at HawksFanTV. And, I came out with a tweet saying that there was a heated argument between a player, quote unquote, and obviously I know who the player was, but I didn't want that to be a bigger deal than it was. But I at least thought the fans deserved to know what was kind of going on behind closed doors. And that session that happened during the shoot around period where it was closed off to the media. So, none of the local guys, AJC, Kevin Chenard, Lauren Williams, Brad Rowland, none of those guys were actually in attendance, which is probably why you didn't hear something. But I got some sources, all right. Just to put it simply, right. Not to toot my own horn or pat myself on the back, but definitely have some context within the organization that kind of filled me in with what happened later that morning. And I tweeted it. And shout out to all the day ones that believed in us and thought that we were actually telling the truth. But there were a lot of doubters, Mac. A lot of doubters.
I saw all the doubters, man. I definitely saw all of them. And
it was everywhere, right? I was getting screenshots from Reddit threads. I was seeing the timeline on Twitter, this and that, saying that, oh, who's HawksFanTV? They don't have any sources. And then once the athletic report came out, we scooped them by a full 48 hours, Mac. 48 hours. Finally people started to believe us that there was something there. So if you guys want that type of level of reporting and the inside scoop, make sure you give us a follow. We tweet most of what we hear out. And I will say, just as a teaser, there is some holes in the athletic story. There were some reports there was a lot of things left unsaid. And, me being a Hawks fan, you being a Hawks fan, I think it's better left unsaid. And I don't want to cause any additional unnecessary drama. But if we start losing some extra games and things get a little bit more heated, I should say, then we might break another groundbreaking story as to what actually happened that Friday morning shoot around. Because there was some truth to the Athletic, but from what I've heard, I heard a little bit differently. But I'm going to hold off on that because, again, according to Nate and the team, everything is blown over. They're trying to move forward from it. And guys, just because something like this happened, it doesn't necessarily mean it's completely detrimental to the team, right? This could be a pivotal moment in the season where we all look back at this moment, 4 or 5 months down the line, and we're sitting pretty as a top 3 seed, and we're going to look back and say, you know what, that friction, that drama, and kind of that, realization was needed for a team like us. So look at the Celtics last year, for example, Mac. Like, they were teetering on 500. They were trying to get their new head coach fired in Ime. There was tension between, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. A lot of fans were saying that they can't work together, and Jaylen Brown's name was on the trade block last year and this offseason. So it can happen, guys. It takes some time to gel. We have a lot of new faces on this squad. Trae obviously is our franchise player. He's our superstar. And being that superstar comes with a more heavily weighted responsibility. And sometimes that's, the cost of being the franchise player, being an all-NBA player. And hopefully Trae can learn from this. And I'm not saying Trae was in the wrong or Nate was in the wrong. That's not my place to say. But I think just for the greater good, I think hopefully us as a team, and by us, I mean the team, we're obviously not a part of it, but the organization can just move forward from this and elevate to the greatness that they are capable of. So yeah, that's what. And speaking of at practice today, and shout out to Lauren Williams of the AJC. She basically said that they had a little fun to end the practice today. There was a 3-point contest between Trae Young and DeJounte Murray and Bogdan Bogdanovic and Trent Forrest. So looks like spirits are high. And if you saw the on-court demeanor and the body language between the players and Trae and Nate, it seemed like a normal game. So hopefully we can grow. I really wish we could have came out with that dub, but it is what it is. We're still the 4th seed in the East, Max. So it's not all doom and gloom over here, but at least we won on Friday night. What were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I thought Friday night was huge, man. And before I go into that, just one last little comment. I all the haters, hey, you guys are entitled to your opinions, but if you think we lack credibility, just keep paying attention, man. Just keep paying attention. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. But yeah, all our supporters though that did believe in us.
Oh, exactly. Of course, always the people that believed us, man.
For as many haters as we have equally as many, awesome supporters, followers. So shout out to you guys. We love y'all. and thanks for following us.
Oh,
This channel and brand was built for you guys.
most definitely. We would be just some random guys without you guys. So we love you guys for sure. So yeah, so the Nuggets game on Friday, man, like I thought that was probably a top 3 win for us all year just because of how many people were out. What it really meant. Obviously, we had broke the story at that point, but the story hadn't become public yet. So, they were trying to keep that all internal and in-house. And I think, what happened with Friday's game and then last night's game was that Friday you saw people like Jarrett Culver and some of these role players really step up and play big games and play, big minutes that they're maybe not used to. And I think on last night's game against the Thunder, you kind of saw that fizzle out a little bit, which is just what happens. They don't get big time minutes for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with that. So won't think too much of the Thunder, but on the opposite end, the Nuggets win, man. I thought it was a complete win. Down 3 starters and we still won, obviously. AJ Griffin tied his season high, which is his career high at this point, with 24 points off of 11 of 16 shooting, man. Like the kid is on fire. He did make some rookie mistakes last night, but hey, man, he was due. You know what I mean? He was due. He was due. So, but yeah, man, I think my biggest takeaway from the Nuggets game, as I mentioned in last week's episode, since he is my favorite player on the Hawks currently, it just felt good to see Brate back, man. Felt good to see Bogey back. He only had 5 points against the Nuggets, so didn't get too much action, but did have a good game against the Thunder last night. So just felt good, man. So yeah, so really my thoughts were I'm smiling and laughing as I say, because I felt great after Friday's win, man. Like I said, if we would have recorded yesterday, it would have been all smiles. So but yeah, man, I think Nate got back to Hawks basketball when I was watching it. We were running that 5-out offense, setting multiple screens on each play, and just playing beautiful basketball. So I think we can keep that up. We'll lock up a top 4 seed, no doubt. So what did you think about Friday?
Friday was a great win. But before I even give my thoughts on the last 2 games, Mac, we completely forgot, and apologies to Hawks Nation, because with all the drama that happened in the locker room, there was also other news amongst Hawks Nation. That is, of course, what happened to Bob Rathburn last night, live on air, suffered a medical emergency. And if you guys saw that, a scary sight to see, y'all. Bob has been with the organization for years and years. I don't even know exactly how long. I want to say like 20 plus years, being our play-by-play announcer. So definitely scary, but the good news is he's doing well now. So
I heard he's in stable condition, doing well. They looks like it was due to him just being dehydrated, which when you do what Bob does for work, and especially at his age, it certainly can happen. So it was scary. Prayers up to Bob Rathbun. Hopefully he can get back soon. I saw, actually, you just tweeted, so you were actually the one that broke the news for me. Mike Conti will be filling in for him for the time being, and Mike is incredible at what he does for Atlanta United, so I know he's going to seamlessly step in for Bob for the time being. So prayers up to Bob. I just like you and like most of us grew up on Bob Rathbun, so it was scary to see, but obviously pretty happy and pretty relieved to hear that he's doing okay. So
no doubt. Our prayers, thoughts and prayers to Bob and his family, but it looks like he's doing well and in stable condition. And as you mentioned, we just tweeted out Mike Conti of 92.9 The Game will be the interim play-by-play next to Neek for at least the next week or so until Bob recovers to full health. And if you guys aren't familiar with Mike Conti, he's a legend in my opinion when it comes to just Atlanta sports. He's been doing his thing at 92.9 The Game, and like you said, Mac, he's phenomenal with the Atlanta United play-by-play calling, and I'm really excited to see what he can do from a Hawks perspective. And I think a lot of Hawks fans are going to enjoy his play calling next to Dominique. So with that being said, also I want to do a quick shout out to one of our great sponsors at Firmament Solutions. Firmament Solutions, really good guys over there, local company based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And guys, if you're reaching out to build a physical network for the future, only the networks that can scale with technology will actually achieve that. So over at Firmament Solutions, they are the industry leader in information highway construction building. They are backed by leading manufacturers. And they do a hell of a job. So if you guys want to learn more about what they do and how they can help your business, check out them on their website at www.firmamentsolutions.com. Again, that is Firmament, Firmament solutions.com. So shout out to those guys. They're awesome and they do great work. Now back to the game though. Friday night, like you said, Mac, we played the Nuggets. We're incredibly shorthanded, missing Trae, missing Dre, missing JC, and a couple of those guys. And a lot of Hawks fans, especially that was the night or the day that the story broke out. Trae wasn't even in the building, raised a lot of eyebrows. A lot of people thought we were going to get destroyed because the Nuggets are a great team, y'all. They are a legitimate contending team, and they're one of the favorites to come out the West. And we came out with the W. The ball was humming. Everyone was getting touches. Defense was looking good, and we came out with the W. So I'm happy about that. So the offense and the scheme looked completely different. Like we've seen this at times, even earlier this season, where everyone's running around, everyone's getting touches, they're making cuts to the basket, using screens, off-ball screens, and it was just a good team effort. Great team effort. DeJounte led the way with a 30-plus point game. AJ Griffin, as you mentioned, tied his career high on incredible efficiency. So all around, it was great to see, and I'm happy we got the W. Can't complain about beating a top-seeded team in the Denver Nuggets. So that was great. I was hoping we could, kind of ride that momentum on a 2-game win streak, take it down to OKC or take it down to State Farm Arena again and host OKC. And things were looking great, Mac. We looked identical to how we looked like against the Nuggets in the first half. Everyone was getting touches. Trae was facilitating. People were running around, playing good defense. And we had, I want to say, a double-digit lead at halftime, or almost a double-digit lead. And then the third quarter comes around. Again, we dominate them. We have like a 15 or 16-point lead at one point, and then things come crashing down. Ball stops moving, and it's like a complete 180, Mac, from what we did from the Nuggets game, plus the first half of that game last night. And it goes back to like that ISO ball, dribble, one pass late in the shot clock, putting up a bad shot, and we're just not capitalizing on these possessions. Defense kind of broke down at a number of different times too. And for all the people that want to say, oh, it's Trae Young's fault, right? You see what happens when Trae's on the court. We look like a different team against the Nuggets. Why can't we beat a lesser team in the Thunder? We played a great first half and even majority of that third quarter too. So this team is obviously capable of playing that good team basketball. Ball is moving around, getting everybody touches. And we did that. We completely collapsed in the fourth quarter, stopped everything that we did to build that lead, and everything just went out the window for some reason. And that's happened multiple times. Last night actually makes it 4 straight times the Atlanta Hawks have blew a double-digit lead that resulted in a loss. So our last 4 losses all came from double-digit leads that were blown away. And you can't blame it on one player, because it's not, especially in that game when Trae was sitting on the bench for the majority of the fourth quarter early on for the first 5-6 minutes. That's when the Thunder actually took their lead for the first time of the game. I think it's more of a mentality, a mindset, a coaching thing, in my opinion. We have to do a better job at just closing games out, sticking to what's been working to give us that lead in the first place. It's just, it makes zero sense. It makes zero sense. And as you mentioned, AJ Griffin played not arguably, he definitely played his worst game of his young NBA career. And like you said, it was due. It was bound to happen. And, he's 19 years old and he's done a lot of great things, but last night was definitely some growing pains, right? Hitting on these open shots, turning the ball over, that 3-on-1 fast break. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. It was late in the fourth quarter. He makes a great steal. Then he goes on a fast break. He's got guys trailing him all next to him, and he takes it by himself. and he misses the shot. They get the rebound, and the Thunder take it back. Like, you just can't let that happen. That's a rookie mistake, but hey, you learn. You live and you learn.
Oh yeah, no, it's that was actually the play I was about to reference, that fast break. And like you said, he starts it by making an incredible defensive play and one of the more crucial moments of the entire game. And just it's like, dude, you got three defenders on you and two or three Hawks right behind you, on the wing. Like, just pass it out, man. Like, but like we said, he was due for it, and that's why, it is what it is. It doesn't even happen in, the NFL anymore, but nobody goes undefeated in the NBA. Like, you're going to lose games. So, last week on last week's episode, me and you said that we had the 3 games between our next recording, and that, we wanted to go 3-0, obviously, but if we went 2-1, we'd be happy. And we both thought our 2 wins would be the Magic and the Thunder, and that we would lose to one of the Nuggets, right? So I'm bringing that up to say that, honestly, man, looking back on it, the fact that we were able to beat the Nuggets and lose to the Thunder, I'm okay with it. It definitely feels like a little bit of last season where we were, man. As a season ticket holder, I saw it firsthand several times. If we were playing the best teams in the league, we won. But if we played the bottom barrel teams, we would somehow lose. So we need to figure that out. I'm not, panicking, not calling for anybody's jobs, but I do agree that if the Hawks want to be a championship winning team or championship contending team, like they all want to be, obviously, you can't lose games like this, man, because last night you said 4 in a row, but it's our 7th overall double-digit lead that resulted in a loss, which now has us tied for first in the NBA, and that's just not a statistic you want to be first in. So, I'll compare it to the Boston Celtics. Maybe this time last year they would lose that game, but the Celtics of now, this championship contending team that is still a little on the younger side, they don't lose games like that. So we gotta get something more figured out. Like you said, fourth quarter, it just gets sloppy. There's just no other way to put it, man. It just gets sloppy. I don't know if it's obviously the pressure gets higher. Me and you, man, we're just normal dudes. You know what I mean? Like, we're not on the court out there. We don't know what it's like. It's obviously watching it's incredibly fast paced. I'm sure it's even faster paced as you're doing it. So I understand that, that's what happens, but I don't know, man. I do want to see the Hawks stop losing games like this, because it doesn't make me completely lose faith, but man, it can be disheartening. So I do want to see a little bit of improvement. But the last thing I'll say on it is I do think it's a little telling that, Friday, like I said, we broke it, but it wasn't a public story yet in a lot of people's eyes, even though we had broke it. And they were able to kind of rally together as a team and pull out this win that maybe they shouldn't have. Then the story goes public, and you got guys like Zach Klein who just can't drop it and are going to hound Trae over and over again to create a story out of it and create this drama in this mess of a situation. And we lose a game, and it looks pretty sloppy in the fourth quarter. So I don't think that had nothing to do with it. I will say.
Yeah, and just to kind of echo what you said before, that is, that's the duality of this team. That's why the Hawks are such a polarizing team, is because some nights we can look like one of the 5 best teams in the NBA. Other nights we can look like a play-in team, like last night, like the Rockets, the couple games before that, so on and so on. And like we're a talented team. We're a good team, in my opinion. It's just we're not putting it all together for a full 4 quarters. And like, you have to be a good team to at least muster up those big leads, right? So we're good enough to outscore our opponents by double digits multiple different games, and we're good enough to build those leads and run our offense and play good defense, and then we blow them. So that's the frustrating part. And again, I think it starts with kind of the top down. Obviously, you got to hold some players accountable, like, the leaders of this team, whether it's Trae or DeJounte or John Collins, Clint Capella, you name it. But I think what this team is really lacking is, that smash mouth veteran that a lot of these teams have, that, old veteran that's been in the league for 10 plus years, that aren't afraid to tell some of our younger guys to just, man up and let's get this W, right? We had a couple of those pieces in years past, especially when we made the ECF, guys like Lou Williams, who's been in the league for, over a decade, Gallo, Solomon Hill, those types of guys that aren't afraid to tell, your second, third, fourth year players, like, we got to be better. So I'd like to see that. Maybe we make a move at the trade deadline for one of those kind of grizzled vets that aren't afraid to kind of put some of our star players in place. Because at the end of the day, whether you're Trae or DeJounte, these guys are still young, right? When I mean, granted, a lot of the stars of the NBA now are kind of in that range, but these are 23, 24, 25-year-old kids still, playing against grown men. So at the end of the day, I think it's maturing on all aspects, and we'll see what we can do. I have full faith in this team. I got full confidence in Trae being a leader, and that whole narrative of him being a coach killer is preposterous in my opinion, but that's a topic for another day. And I think Trae can lead this team, and with the guys like DeJounte Murray and a few other players, Clint Capella, to be kind of those other vocal leaders. We need that. We need that, but I think Trae's going to learn from this. I think he's going to grow from this, and it's part of the process being a star player in the NBA. It's trial and tribulations. It's and you need growing pains. So hopefully this is one of those moments that Trae looks back in his career and says, you know what, I needed that. I needed this, and I'm going to now elevate my game and my team and, be the star that this team trusts me to be. So that's where we're at.
Oh yeah. No, I totally agree. And, won't say too much more on it. I think what simply happened, and this is what they mean by the miscommunication, is that Trae, rightfully so, was kind of expecting some slightly preferential treatment in that, hey, I'm going to miss a shoot around because I need to go get treatment on my shoulder. And Nate was like, no, you got to be there for the team. And all I'll say is, a guy that we constantly compare Trae to throughout his career, if Luka needs to go get his shoulder worked on for the afternoon and miss shoot around, I would think Jason Kidd would probably be okay with that. So I do think, I want Trae to grow from it as well. But Nate, I know you're a grown man, but you can grow too. And, I want Nate to realize that, as you've said on the show, and I've kind of repeated it, Trae Young is basically the reason that HawksFanTV exists. Like Trae Young is what makes this franchise what it is today, the modern Atlanta Hawks. And I don't think people, I know a lot of Hawks fans are a little bit younger, but like we've been through some dark days as Hawks fans. So I'm just saying, man, like, the Josh Childress days, like I don't think people really, really, really value how much Trae has done for this franchise. So with that being said, I understand that I can think different than Nate on this one, but I personally think that if Trae needs to go get treatment for his shoulder one day, it's okay if he misses the shoot around. So I'll leave it at that. I want both of them to grow from it. I think they will. Like, that's my honest opinion. I think they will. I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm even more excited for this to be behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and you hit the nail on the head, Mac. Like, I obviously a lot of the newer generation, and especially if you became a fan of the team because of Trae, which a lot of Hawks fans did, and that's what happens when you have a star-studded player in Trae Young. But yeah, I mean, Mac and I are, we're pushing 30 years old, so we've seen some dark times. We've seen the Josh Childress days, the Speedy Claxton days, the era of Mike Woodson, where we were winning, 15 to 20 games a year, and 80% of the stadium was empty or filled with other fans. Like, it was rough. It was rough. And, I think a lot of Hawks fans just need to be a little bit more appreciative of what Trae Young has done to this franchise. Because, if you look past the last 2-3 decades, we haven't drafted an all NBA player ever, like in the last 20 years. So the fact that we finally hit a home run in Trae Young, an all NBA caliber player, all-star player, and just that kind of national spotlight being with us, right? I forget the exact number, Mac, but like prior to Trae Young, we were getting maybe like one nationally televised game,
Right.
on ESPN or TNT or whatever. And like since the Trae Young era, we've gotten numerous amounts, and it's because of Trae Young. And so, like, people can say, oh, well, I've heard some like rebuttals of, well, let's trade Trae and, start over. Like, we can build a contending team. If it was that easy, we would have done it years ago.
Right, right.
Like, you don't draft, like, drafting an all NBA player and like building that in your system. They are rare, like rare. There are probably 28 other teams that would trade for Trae Young right now. Like, unless you're like the Mavericks and Luka, or like Jason Tatum or whoever, who's another young star at that level. Like, other franchises would absolutely kill to be in our position to even have a player of Trae Young's caliber. So yes, can Trae improve his shot selection? Yeah. Can he, run the offense a little bit better? Yeah, but it's going to come. Like, Trae's done so much good, more than the bad that he's done, that I think just a lot of this unnecessary hate is stupid. And Trae Young is that guy, and I support him. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying anything, but if it had to come between Trae and Nate, like, I'm going to side with Trae Young all day, every day, and twice on Sundays. So,
oh yeah,
I'm going to leave it at.
And Hawks fans, let's just keep it in this perspective. I'm sure some of you have this scenario as well, but my brother, God bless him, is a diehard Knicks fan, right? Has been his entire life, loves the Knicks, breathes and dies the Knicks. You know what he tells me, and he's been telling me for years now, ever since that playoff matchup against the Knicks. Goes, at least you guys have a Trae Young. So it's the idea of having an all NBA player, like you said, man. Hey, they are rare, guys. They are rare. Like, all NBA is not something. If you look at it, it's more than likely the same dudes every single year. And what I'm getting at is that it's rare, man. It's not something to just be like, oh, let's trade him away and rebuild. Like, I saw some tweet about trading to the Magic and getting some of their young players. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like Trae is a proven product at this point. So I won't go off on it too much, because I could sit here for hours and defend Trae Young. But yeah, man, we'll wrap it up on that. I think we need not to fret, Hawks fans. We're gonna be okay. I don't think this is that big of a deal. The national and especially local media has done everything they can to turn it into a big deal, but I really don't think it is, guys. I think we can, breathe and sleep easy on that one. And brighter days are ahead. They're ahead.
Brighter days are ahead, and as a wise man once said, this too shall pass, guys. So deep breaths, woosah, and the team is going to prevail, guys. I think this is going to be a pivotal moment that we look back on. So appreciate you guys listening. As always, make sure you follow us on all socials at HawksFanTV. Like and subscribe to the podcast if you like it, and leave a review, leave a rating. We'd much greatly appreciate it. So thank you to all of our followers, our listeners out there. We love you guys. Go Hawks, and we look forward to next week's episode.
Yes, sir. Well said, my man. Go Hawks, and be looking out for more stuff, guys.
Yes, sir.